50 years ago, I served in the U.S. Navy, and as a result, I had a chance to visit Hong Kong several times and other places in Asia, but I never made it to Australia and New Zealand. So I thought it was about time to do my bucket list. My journey from Hungary to Hong Kong started with a 2.5 hour flight from Budapest airport up to Helsinki, the capital of Finland, where I was going to be catching my overnight flight to Hong Kong. It was about 2.5 hours, smooth flight with about a 2 hour connection. Everything went smooth. The flight from Helsinki down to Hong Kong takes about 11 hours, and you'll notice it doesn't go straight across because that would involve flying over Russia, which they normally did before the war with Ukraine. But because of the sanctions, EU airliners cannot fly over Russia, so they had to add about an hour to the flight. But it was a night flight, so I didn't notice it, and it was a smooth flight. So that was all good, and I got into Hong Kong around 5 p.m. the next day, accounting for the time change. After about a 13-hour flight from Budapest up to Helsinki and then across Asia, I arrived in Hong Kong and headed over to my hotel. Hong Kong consists of the island, which you see in front of you, the main business district with a large mountain peak in the middle. And then north of there is the Kowloon district, which is on the mainland and is primarily suburbs for the 8 million people that live there. Besides the usual fast food restaurants, we found some traditional convenience stores and the big 7-Eleven and Circle K. The first attraction for me was the Peak Tram. Now, Hong Kong Island is very hilly, and so the Peak Tram goes from downtown up into the peak, about a 400-meter rise and about a 27% grade. It's a funicular, which means that it is hauled up and down by cables. The Peak Tram has been operating since the 1880s. And at the lower station, you see here a replica of one of the original cable cars, along with some people that apparently have been waiting a long time to get out of there. In addition to the tourists going up to the peak, there are some intermediate stations where some of the local residents are waiting. And there's a platform where it seems like they're leaning to one side, but they're actually standing straight up. We're the ones going up the angle. Pretty cool optical illusion. Those guys are just waiting for the downhill tram. As we get up higher in elevation, you can look on off to the right, and you'll see that we get a great panoramic view of down to the harbor, like where that guy's pointing, yeah. And you'll see how high up we are above the skyscrapers. In the distance, you can see the harbor, and just off to the right, almost out of sight, you'll see the edge of the Kowloon district shoreline. 5-minute ride, we arrived at the peak terminus of the Peak Tram. As you can see, it's pulling up in there. You'll see that there's a building right above it. They've added 2 or 3 levels of shops. It's sort of a mini mall and an observation deck on the top. And we'll go up there once we get off and take a look around. So we're at the highest sky terrace, I guess, the highest 360 view from the Victoria Peak here. You're looking at downtown Hong Kong down there, and in the distance Kowloon, which is the land side. We're on a big island here, obviously, on a peak. Not the highest point on the island, but the highest one you can get to easily. A lot of private residences up there from the British colonial days. And we'll take a walk further around to get another view. Another view of the sky terrace. We can look down and actually see the Peak Tram pulling up into the top station, the peak station, from even above it. And then if you look in the distance, you can actually see all the way down to the water and see how steep the grade is. On the way back down, it was also standing room only. I'm standing, but I'm actually leaning back, holding on to the handrail behind me so I don't fall forward into the laps of the people in front of me. You can get an idea of the grade here. And it's a really good thing that this thing's attached to a cable, so we don't have any chance of slipping. We're on the Star Ferry. 50 years later, it's still running. Of course, there's subway subways and a lot of other ways to get underneath or over to the other side from Kowloon to downtown. So we're going to take the SAR ferry. It's still around. Yeah, they got a Ferris wheel there. I'm not sure with all these skyscrapers these days that there's much to see from there other than other buildings from further up on the building. And I suppose you can see over to Kowloon across the ocean, across the bay from where we came from. And that was a quick trip, but that was the way to get from downtown here over to Kowloon, which was pretty much empty 50 years ago, and now has got millions and millions of people living there. Kind of pulling on in. Just a quick way of getting across instead of the subway. From Hong Kong Island, you get a clear view of the 101-story ICC Tower, and one of the tallest in Asia. And you'll see on this side that there's all sorts of lights. Of course, there's offices, but at night they light up and show you a digital video. And so we're going to watch that as soon as the sun goes down. The theme will be sunrise with the birds and the animals coming out to celebrate the day. A blooming day. Are you ready? 10. I knew they were going to do it. Why did I know they were going to do a countdown? I guess the idea is the sun came up on a blooming day now. Yeah, flowers, butterflies.